So I said, I want to be a neurosurgeon. I always liked science. I was very curious as a kid. I liked the little experiments and take things apart and bugs and frogs. So I loved that stuff. I couldn't get enough of it. So I knew I was going to be a doctor when I was young, but I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. And of course, guess who I read in that article? Dr. Ben Carson. There's a theme here. And just off the record, off note for a second, Dr. Ben Carson, when I was a medical student at Dartmouth Medical School, y'all know where Dartmouth is? What state is it in? New Hampshire. How many of y'all been to New Hampshire? It's beautiful. It's beautiful, guys. Upper New England is God's country. I'm not kidding you. New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, spectacular. The mountains, the purity, the water. Oh my goodness. The Main Islands are fantastic. We got to get out more. This country is fantastic. I'm telling you. It's fantastic. And I tell young kids all the time. My college roommate and I, a guy I played basketball with, when we were in our philosophical days of living in New York, and we were going to solve Black America's problems. One thing we did come up with that I stand by to this day, a lot of that stuff is garbage, but you know, when you're 20-something years old, you think you can solve the world, you know, which is good, by the way. You should feel that way as a 20-something-year-old, right? You should feel it. But one thing that really holds true now is that we felt as though that African Americans were underexposed. This is not a knock. I'm talking real talk. I'm one of you, trust me. I grew up in a blue-collar household, single mother, okay, working 3 jobs, half raising my grandparents. So we, don't get fooled by Dr. Ian and TV. I'm one of you, trust me. Okay? Okay? Yesterday I was saying I know it was the blood. Okay? Communion Sunday. And I said to Pastor Jenkins, I said, before I go, I'm going to put the choir on the spot. You got to sing something my great aunt used to sing in our little church. I know it was the blood. So we together on this. Trust me on this, okay? Now, we felt as though that African Americans were not exposed enough. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Okay? We live in just the area that we live in. And so our minds don't go outside of those areas. Okay? When we say we go away on vacation, that means going down south. I did it. Okay? In the back of Aunt Hungry's big old green station wagon with fried chicken and tinfoil, right? And some bread. Okay? We have to see more of the world. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because when you see more of the world, it opens up your mind. It opens your mind up. I have 2 boys who are 8 and 6. And they've traveled to 7 countries already. Okay? People say, well, they won't remember the Eiffel Tower. You're missing the point. You're missing the point. I want my kids to know that there are other kids halfway around the world that are warmed by the same sun. Right? That see the same stars. And speak their language. And have their icons. Right? Because when you get a sense of relativity, then you become humble. Right? Because that's what it's all about. When you start realizing that there's someone halfway around the world that's taller than you and stronger than you and faster than you and better looking than you and everything else, you start becoming humble. But you also become more ambitious because you want to get that competitive spirit going. So, back to my story. So I was supposed to be a surgeon, doing brain surgery. I spent my entire high school and college career, everyone who knew me knew I was going to be a neurosurgeon. It was a fait accompli. And then I got the chance to do in medical school, it's called do a rotation. You actually go rotate on the service. And so I got to rotate with the neurosurgeons. They were the unhappiest, miserable, angry, tired. It was terrible. We got into the hospital, it was dark. We left the hospital, it was dark. I just made a decision, and this was hard, because I spent my whole life, my whole image was I was going to be a neurosurgeon. I made a decision I was not going to be a neurosurgeon. Because while I loved the surgery, I also wanted a lifestyle, right? Because I just believed that life is too short not to really squeeze the most you can get out of it. So I changed to orthopedic surgery, which I was resisting because orthopedic surgeons are known to be the jock surgeons. All the jocks go into orthopedic surgery. And I was an athlete, and I didn't want to go into stereotype. So I fought everything I could not to become an orthopedic surgeon. And I realized, geez, these guys are having a lot of fun. The surgeons were cool, the guys were cool, you hang out afterward. I mean, you want to talk to these guys, watching a football game. So I started training in orthopedic surgery. But I always had a desire to know the news. I love news. I'm a news junkie. My wife says CNN, she just like, turn it off. I just can't help it. But I was a news junkie, and before I graduated from medical school and went into the labors of medicine, I wanted to do an internship in the newsroom because I wanted to see how news was made. This is my curiosity. I just want to see how they did it. Like, what are they reading and how do they put the stories together? So I met an anchor in NBC in Chicago named Art Norman, and he said I could come be his intern as a medical student. Now, once again, I had no desire to go on TV. I just wanted to see how they put the news together. Well, fast forwarded, I did an internship. I went to work in New York City in the Bronx, South Bronx, as a surgeon in training. And then Art called me to New York, back to Chicago. His wife had gotten sick with uterine cancer. And so I went back to help them understand this complex situation. And we're sitting on the couch, and he said to me, we're watching the news. He said, you could do that. I said, do what? He said, you could be on the news. How can I be on the news? I mean, I've never been on TV before. You said I could be on the news. And he convinced me. This is why mentorship is important. He convinced me that day, that afternoon, Sunday afternoon, watching the news. And he called up Hetty Zussman, who was a little editor at NBC, and said, I'm going to bring Ian by. She was on her day off too. Come into the station. We're going to put together all his little clips, his video clips, and make little resumes for him. And then we're going to send him back to New York and see if he can get a job. It worked. It worked. And I ended up working at the #1 station in the #1 market, my first job at NBC New York. Not because I was any good, because of God and because people were looking out for me. Okay? Now, I then started to spread my wings and decided, well, if I can be on TV, I can write for magazines. I was wanting to write for a big magazine. So I was at a journalist convention, the National Association of Black Journalists, and I went to the jobs fair, and I said, well, this year, I'm going to get a column in a magazine. Once again, when you're young, you feel like you can do anything. So there was Time magazine, there was Newsweek. I looked, Newsweek had 3 people in front of it, Time magazine had no one. So I walked up to Time magazine. I said to the guy wearing a polo shirt, I said, very casually dressed, white guy, I said, listen, I'm interested in writing for your magazine. You are? I said, yeah, you got any clips? I said, sure. I used to write a little column for the New York Daily News, a little local paper. I said, sure, here you go. I sold my clips. He looked at it. We We got to talking. He went to Harvard. I went to Harvard. She said, oh, okay, all right. We're getting somewhere. So, Time Magazine was across the street from NBC on 6th Avenue in New York. He said, when we get back to the city, why don't you come on over across the street and let's sit down and talk and introduce some editors there. Make a long story short, I got a column in Time Magazine. Now, I'm writing my column, and I think I'm writing the best column in the world, of course. But every time I write my column, I write about the flu, and people ask me questions about weight loss. I write about Tylenol scare, and people want to know about fat burners. So I said, this is problematic, because these people now, they trust me. They want my stamp of approval. They want to know, but I don't know anything about it. So I said, geez, what am I going to do? And so I started researching nutrition. And I did exercise already, but I started researching nutrition to explain what a fat burner is and what the metabolism is and all these, what's a whole food and what's a processed food. All this stuff was foreign to me, even as a doctor, because doctors don't learn about that in medical school. Okay? So, what's the question? Why? Did someone say why? Oh, right. Yeah, right. They're changing that now, by the way. But when I was in medical school, I'm dating myself, we had 3 hours of nutrition. That was it. 3 hours. And yeah, I'm supposed to counsel you on diabetes. So, I got an email from an editor at Random House. And she said, we love your column, Dr. Smith. You want to write any books? Absolutely. I want to do everything. So she said, okay. She said, well, I met with her, Mary, that's her name. She said, okay, well, we'll sign you to a 2-book deal. I said, okay, what do you want me to write? Whatever you want. Whatever I want. Whatever you want. I said, okay. So I decided that one of the books I wanted to write was a weight loss book. Because all my readers in the column kept asking about weight loss and nutrition. So I said, I'm going to write the book. That's it. I'm going to write the final book. It's called The Take Control Diet. Take control of your life. And so I write this book, and they paid me a lot of money. A lot of money. Too much money. And the editor still tells me that. But I write this book called The Take Control Diet. And I thought that was going to be revolutionary. I just figured that it was going to change everything. And so I'm doing this show called Celebrity Fit Club. And I said to the celebrities, they said, well, so the show has me as the medical guy, that had the psychologist, and had Harvey, the mean drill sergeant. You remember Harvey? Yeah. And they said to me, the celebrity said, well, what are we going to do for a meal plan? I said, I got your meal plan. I gave them all copies of the Take Control Diet. So about a week and a half into the show, I noticed no one's really following the diet. And finally, Jack Hay just said to me, Dr. Ian, listen, we love you. We love you. But this book is too much. You know, what a calorie is and nutrient density. Just tell us what to eat, when to eat it, and we're good. So first my pride was hurt, because I thought this book was the bomb. I mean, it really is, from a nutrition, it has all the nutritional information you want to learn about food in a very small package. So what am I going to do now? So I started making up a diet. I just started making it up. So every week, this is the truth. Every week, I live in New York. I used to fly to LA to do the show. Every week, I would email a week's plan into the production office in LA and Hollywood. They would then distribute to the celebrities all across the country. And I was just really flying by the seat of my pants. I mean, I had nutritional understanding, but if it was going to work, I didn't know. But they weren't going to follow the diet or in the book, so I had to do something. So they start losing weight. And and Takara was on that show, the plus-size model, Takara. So we're in the production meeting, and the director says to me, Dr. Ian, I need to talk to you. I said, okay. So the meeting's over. He pulls me to the side. He says, I have to make a confession. I said, okay. He says, I've been stealing your diet. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, when you fax in the diet, I would take it and copy it and keep one for myself and give the other copies to the celebrities. I said, okay, that's great. He's up now 17 pounds. And I knew he had been losing weight, but you gotta be real careful when you talk to people about losing weight. I made that mistake before. So since he opened it up, I then could say,